Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us, yes, Bria, no problem. Today we have with us Bria Rose, a dark romance fairy tale author, a Disney enthusiast turned dark romance author. And we'll learn from her about creative and psychological allure of giving classic stories a provocative modern twist. We'll learn about her process for crafting morally gray heroes, independent heroines, and happily ever afters that resonate with today's audience. Welcome to the show, Bria.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about reimagining fairy tales for adults. So we'll talk about a lot of things. But before that, let's learn a bit about you, your journey, your background, your story, so that people know who they are listening.
Awesome. Well, again, my name is Bria Rose, and I guess this all started when I was little, and I was introduced to Disney, all things Disney, when I was a little baby, and it kind of grew into working there for about 7 years, and ever since kind of COVID happened, I was let go, didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life, and back in high school, I had started writing a book with a former friend, and recently we kind of about 6 years ago I wrote the whole thing, and then she's like, hey, I can't really do that right now. I'm like, okay, well, I have officially gotten bitten by the writing bug, so I gotta keep writing. And I did. I ended up writing a dark romance, Why Choose Beauty and the Beast retelling, and now from then on I feel like I was destined for this and I don't really want to do anything else.
Absolutely. So help us understand, who is your audience? What are you trying to do for a common person who reads and wants to read, but don't know what to read and gets anything that they can read? So in that aspect, how would you like to tell what you write for such audiences understanding?
Well, I suppose the people that I'm really writing for are Disney adults. I feel like my people are Disney adults who grew up with Disney, so maybe millennials, mainly females, but I've come to learn from doing quite a few book signings this past year that anybody and everybody can enjoy my books or dark romance in general. Sometimes I'll get asked, "Oh, are you going to have these in schools?" I'm like, "No. My book does not belong in a school setting. It's definitely not made for that. It definitely is for adults." Now, 18 plus, I'd say for sure 25 to probably 40 female is my demographic for sure. But again, I have had girls as young as 13 come up and say, hi, I want to buy your book. I'm like, okay. I had one girl, 13, came with her entire family. And I'm like, Mom, are you sure? She's like, no, it's fine. I'm like, you know what? I wrote the book. You guys can do what you want with it, but definitely there's a wide range of people who enjoy my book specifically. They're, Disney retellings or just fairy tale retellings in general. It's a very niche, but it is quickly growing. So I don't think when people think dark romance, I feel like they have a certain idea, but really what dark romance means to me is just kind of giving everybody trauma, and it's just matured. So I do write smut. I do write things that might go a little deeper into certain things that happen to certain people. And so I guess that's where the dark romance comes from, because some of this stuff people might not be into. It might kind of go against the grain of what society deems as appropriate. But again, that's where dark romance comes from. We have a thing called trigger warnings, and a lot of people feel the longer the trigger warning list is kind of like a grocery list for us. Like, oh, we love this and this and this. So it's definitely something that is also on a spectrum. Not every dark romance book is written the same or has the same Not every book is the same. I feel like there are books on this side of the spectrum that is definitely dark. You have to maybe take your time with reading, where some of it is maybe like softer, maybe more introductory to get into it. And I feel like my book is more on this side. So if you are looking for something to get yourself into, like a book to get into dark romance, dark romantasy, my book definitely would be a great starting point.
Absolutely, absolutely. So help us understand about this dark romance. What is these dark romances all about, the books around that? And especially, moving from or growing up with fairy tales and then graduating to these dark romance books. Means it's almost like a rewiring of the brain. Help us understand from this point of view. And you told about that, a lot of women readers are there. So from that point of view, how do they reframe that? Why do they suddenly shift from one point to now this dark romance?
That's a great question. So I'm only going to speak from the female perspective because I feel like I understand that side a lot better than maybe, why a man or they, them should read my book. But from a female perspective, especially growing up with Disney, loving Disney, Disney is all about the heroes. Disney is all about, the hero wins, good always wins against evil. But as you get older, I feel as though there there's good and evil is not black and white, right? There's not one way that is good, one way is evil. And a lot of the villains, as Disney is kind of coming out with these movies, like Maleficent is a phenomenal example of villains aren't born, they're made. It's trauma, it's things that happen to us as, at different points in our lives. So with that in mind, there's also this rise of women being independent, being more feminist, not really taking, anybody's crap. I don't know what I can say, but just not taking. They're wanting to speak up for themselves. So I think a lot of women are in relationships with people, not just men, but people in general who don't treat them right, who don't want to make them a priority. So we go to these books where these men, mainly men. Of course, there are women as well. I don't want to generalize, but again, speaking from my perspective, there's these men, they're called morally gray characters, where they will literally burn the world down for their person. So these people, these women, are in relationships where their man won't even really text them good morning. And then you have these morally gray characters going to the ends of the world, sometimes dimensions. They'll wait 500 years for their woman to be reborn. And you can't get a good morning text. You can't get, hey, let me plan an outing, a date night. Hey, girlfriend, I laid a dress out for you, my favorite pair of heels. I made us reservations, dinner tonight, 8 p.m. I'll pick you up, brings flowers. It's just planning. It really is just like fantasies. Women want men like that. And I just feel like we kind of, and even some women who do, it's just in all a fantasy. So that is why, in my opinion, people really take to these more mature stories. Not only that, but we love Disney retellings. And I feel like a lot of those movies are made for children, even though there are maybe some subliminal messaging in them in a sense. But we just we enjoy these more adult stories.
Absolutely. So what intrigues me is that, with more empowerment, more women getting into workplaces, leading their independent lives, and still they would want a man who would burn the world for them. Why is it so? Why would they not burn the world for the type of man they want? Help us understand this. Independence still dependent on a character which does not exist.
That's a really great question because I think it goes both ways with the whole, oh, men are only going to burn the world down. No, we have morally gray women as well. So it's just people showing up for you, right? It's men and women, your partner showing up for you in a way. And so I think that a lot of people gravitate toward these stories to live out those fantasies. Now, we do have hyper independent women, and those kind of women need a hyper masculine male to help balance out this independence, right? When a woman is in her feminine, because as women, we are meant to be in our feminine, we are meant to be in our creative. So we are only really hyper independent because we have been kind of forced to be. Again, not speaking for everybody. There are a lot of women who are like, nope, I love career, which is great for them. You know, it's not speaking badly on women who their life has been amazing and they are just hyper independent. But in general, women who are hyper independent, who are living in their masculine energy, is because they've never been given the opportunity to live in their feminine energy, to be creative and nice and smiley. And when our men give to us, we want to give to them. That's why they say that, you know, I don't really know what I can say and what I can't say on here, but the, what is the words I want to use? The romancing your partner doesn't start at, okay, I'm ready, let's go. For women, for men, it might be that, right? They, you know, visual creatures, things like that, and they can kind of go at it in a moment's notice. Whereas women, you know, you'll hear all these stories of like, no, honey, I what about the dishes, the kids? Like, we want our minds to shut off, but you don't help us in the kitchen. You don't help us with bedtime. Do you allow me to get a full night's sleep? Do you, because women have all of these lists in her head. She's like, okay, got to take care of this, got to do laundry, you know, it never ends. And so women just want someone to help ease the burdens of everyday life and want to live in this feminine energy. But I feel like a lot of men, we aren't allowed to do that. So again, yes, there is independent women, but we, you know, there's just need to be balance.
Absolutely, Bria. Got your point. And then I just want to understand it a bit more for the audience, especially from women point of view. They grow up with, you know, you talk about Disney's fairy tales. And then you get into dark romance. They're also illusion. As an adult also, it's an illusion, especially from real life. Because you meet bad men, and that lets you move more towards such, you know, dark romances, thinking about characters who would wait for 500 years or 1,000 years and burn down the world for you. Help us understand from that perspective, where does this illusion lead to? Does it ever lead to the real life, making you go to the real life and make the right kind of world for yourself? Or it is good for books and everything else, but then as an individual, how do you look at reality in real life? Help us understand from that point of view. Where do you lead your readers to?
So do you mean like reading the books and then coming back to reality, and how I kind of balance the two?
Yes, not
so
you,
that's
but
all
as a reader also. Means there has to be some way a reader has to get back to reality, which in several cases is not so good. I want to understand it. Is it a life of illusion that you create from the very beginning? And dark romance is nothing wrong with that, but I am trying to understand the impact of such things from women. How do they also get down to the reality of real life?
I think that there's a few different ways you can go with this. I mean, when we are consuming media, like movies, TV shows, we get into this mode. I believe it's called suspensive disbelief. It's where we're so engrossed in the TV show, the movie, that we kind of forget about everything else. And we are in that movie, we're in that moment. When I watch movies, I'm like, I'm that character. Oh my gosh. And sometimes I get really sad when I leave. I'm like, I'm not Katniss from Hunger Games. I'm not Hermione Granger in Harry Potter. You know, like, it's when we are finally away from that, we have to come back to reality. Sometimes it does make us sad. Sometimes it makes us depressed or different things. So there might be, you know, complications in that sense. But in my mind, it isn't any worse than watching a movie, reading a book. It's just the media that you choose to disengage from the world, and then you come back, right? But of course, there are going to be some people who go too much into it. And I feel like that's any kind of addiction, right? We have to eat food to survive, but too much indulgence just is not good for you. Alcohol, same thing. You know, literally anything that you consume too much isn't going to be good for you. So while, yes, there are some cases where they have a hard time coming back from it. Like, book depression is a thing. I have a friend who continues to cry over certain characters from a book that she read over a year ago. Like, when she thinks about her, she cries because she's like, oh my gosh, I feel like I went to war with this character because I was with her for 9 books. You know, you do get connected to these characters. And I think that's what's amazing about storytellers, whether it's movies, film, books, whatever the medium is. That's her job, is to get people connected. Now, what they choose to do with it is, you know, kind of on them to make sure it's being consumed in a healthy aspect. But of course, there's going to be situations where, you know, it does get unhealthy. But overall, most people in general, they can balance, especially have really good relationships. There's a lot of people like on social media, like we call it book talk or bookstagram, where they make content with their partners. And it really actually brings partners together, because people need to realize what we consume in our books, we're going to want to, you know, do maybe in real life. So it's just another tool to connect partners together. So a lot of different things can be said for it.
Absolutely. One more thing about, ethics. You talk about morally gray characters that the people like, a lot of these readers like in the books. In real life, the young generation is very much, looking at ethics in a much more realistic manner. Any company which is selling wrong products, or they would not like to engage with them. Anyone doing something bad, they would call them out. Other things, and that is why the older generation is a bit conscious, much more, trying to understand the young generation, either in terms of office toxic workplaces leading to the great resignation. The young generation wants a digital nomad life and many things. In the books, in dark romances, you talk about that, they are looking at characters much more favorably, if I can use that word, in terms of liking those characters. Isn't it two sides of the same people? It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. On during the day you are something else, during the evenings you are something else. Help us understand from that. I guess everyone is like that, but I want to understand, you are the writer of such books. I want to understand from your point of view in the real life, in terms of ethics. How do you see this? Then I'll come to how you plan your characters in the book.
So that's a really great question. Because I am very new to writing, so some of these terms are pop up like, oh, that's what this is, or that's what that is. So morally gray is just, so characters in general on a spectrum. Yes, we kind of have the hero, the villain. That's kind of in young adult books, or, Harry Potter. Harry Potter is the hero, Voldemort is the villain, which actually we're coming to learn that Dumbledore is also a villain as well, but it's the whole other topic conversation. It's a spectrum. So we have morally gray, which is people, again, some people are born as villains. Some, but some aren't. I didn't know where I was going with a minute. I kind of lost my train of thought. But some aren't. Some are born, some are made. It just all depends. So we actually have morally gray. Then we have a thing called like black characters, where it's dark, where they really are maybe the villain. Now, what makes these characters different on the spectrum is how they interact with other people. So, for example, I am writing a character that is morally gray, but he also has golden retriever energy. And he also has a thing called ASPD, which is antisocial personality disorder. And so they don't have the same feelings as people who don't have it, right? They don't feel the same. These are the kind of people that can unalive animals and not feel anything. They might feel a little bit of different, they don't they don't connect the same way that not normal humans. I don't want to use that word, but they just don't connect in the same way. So my character in one of my next books is obsessed with the female main character. Now, I don't think that he is so much on the spectrum to where he is a full-on villain. He was born this way. He was born with ASPD. He is obsessed with his character. He doesn't understand why he is. He just can't get her out of his mind. And if anybody hurts her, he will unalive them in a second. He does not care. He just wants to make sure she is safe. And he does not care about anybody else. But he cares for whoever she cares about. If she's like, hey, we got to protect these guys. These are my family. He's like, you know what? I'm not a big fan of them, but I'll do it because you want me to. So there's just this huge spectrum, and not everything is just so black and white. And I think that's what's really fun, creating these characters. And ethically, I mean, kind of writing these characters for also writers can be very therapeutic. I feel like dark romance really brings in people who have gone through a variety of trauma I don't need to go down the list, but whatever trauma, abandonment, there's too many to name, but it brings, I feel like, people together because it allows people a safe space to kind of re-experience or to experience what happened on their terms, right? That's why we have things like CNC, and it's a space for people to feel safe in a situation where they weren't safe. So, and these are also real characters. Not everyone is a hero, not everyone is a villain. So ethically, I don't think there's anything wrong with creating these characters, because sometimes, we have a thing called masking. I'm a different personality with every group of people that I talk to. Some people like that I talk a lot, and some people don't. But I want to be around these two people because I enjoy these two people's time and I want to be friends with them. So it's not like I'm changing myself per se. I could just be unapologetically myself, but you just kind of have to fit in with society. Not everyone is the same. Some people have problems with people being too loud around them. So I'm going to try and control my volume. That's not that I'm changing who I am. It's just being respectful of someone else's space and boundaries.
Absolutely. You are also a photographer, scuba diver, and travel the world. Currently reading, learning French, as you say. You know about the world. So your
Yes.
characters, do they reflect the world, or your characters are purely fictional? How do you want to explain that?
That's a wonderful question. You have really good questions. I'm very much enjoying this. I definitely would consider myself worldly. I have been around the world over my 32 years of being on this planet, and I would say that it's half and half. All my characters definitely reflect my travels, because I do a lot of research. I have been to a lot of different countries. And so when I write books and it's based off a certain area, I pull from those memories. I'm like, oh, the French people, they, like, for example, I'm not going to write a French book, have French people and have them say hello to strangers on the street. They don't do that in France. They're like, no, you're a stranger. Why would I say hi to you? Whereas Americans, it is polite. Of course, you're like, if you make eye contact with somebody, you nod or you say, hi, how you doing? If that's just, and if you don't, you're not polite, so Americans all kind of be more polite. French are like, no, I don't know you. I don't know why I have to say hi to you. So I feel like it reflects that, but also I do write characters based on real people. So if I'm mad at you, and you might think you're in a book, I'm sorry, but I was really mad at you at that time. So it goes both ways. I do have characters, purely fictional. They are just in my head. But a lot of these characters are based off of, I'm really obsessed with anime. I don't know if you could tell, but I have an anime character right here. And so I really base these characters off of maybe a hodgepodge of personalities that I like, and I kind of create something new. So that ASPD character is based off of actually a character in an anime called Yakuza Fiance. because I just fell in love with that type of personality where he obviously does not understand emotions and doesn't understand any of that, but he loves this girl and he's just so unhinged. And I told myself, I want to create a character that is unhinged as well. So I do draw inspiration from other places, other media forms.
Absolutely, absolutely, Bria. So, a lot of people who want to write or would want to learn from you in terms of creating characters, how do you balance creating a character which is gray enough but not too dark that it will turn out to look like almost like a villain, and that will not be digestible? How do you manage that part? See, in movies, when they show, they have a big team, lots of discussions, and as an individual writer, you are only there to guide yourself, and then few other resources. I want to understand from your mind. Most of the time it is you and your mind conjuring those characters, trying to create them. How do you do that?
I will admit that it is difficult doing it by yourself. So at first it was trying to find friends to talk to, but of course they're not writers. They don't really understand, but at least I could talk it out. I could have someone be like, hey, I actually love reading. Let me know what you have. And for like a couple of years, I had friends, reading my books and like, what do you think? They're like, oh, we love it. I'm like, okay, that's not what I need. I need you to tell me, are these characters developing well? I'm new. I don't know how to truly do this. And I got really lucky and I found an editor. So a lot of the time we kind of go back and forth and we create magic. Like my first rough draft of Her Dark Promise was very silly. There was a lot of one-dimensional characters, and I learned a lot from writing that book, from doing my research on how to be an author, how to do this, how to do that, how to publish, and also how to create a compelling story that makes people want to stick along on my journey and continue reading my books. Because, I could spend years on a project, but if it doesn't connect with people, then there's nothing that I could really do about that, even though I do believe that all books are not made for everybody. Right? That's why we have different genres. But the whole process is made easier with a team of people. That's, again, like you said, that's why huge companies have teams to bounce ideas off of. So having my editor is amazing. And I have found some more writer friends. So sometimes I call upon them when my editor is not available. But a lot of it is from my brain, it's from my head. And it's just guidance. So getting feedback from my editor and from different sources, I'm like, oh, it's actually a really good idea. Like, I love this. So definitely it's easier.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll come to your book also. But before that, such dark romances. When someone is reading, it is just the book in their hand, they are with the character, and they make that journey. Nowadays, there is this whole trend of turning books into audiobooks. How do dark romances translate or transform into audiobooks? Is it better? It is different than reading a book? How does that work out? What is the trend at this point in time?
Well, audiobooks is the next up and coming. It is fast. It's gosh, what are words I'm trying to use? It is definitely the next form of media that people prefer. Everyone's on the go nowadays, right? So people like the growth of podcasts is huge. The growth of just like this verbal, I guess, media form. So audiobooks, I did one and I did it from ACX. So that's Amazon's audiobook network. And I found two really amazing narrators, Jacob Morgan and Grace Noble. And it's just different. They really brought my characters to life in a way that I never would have imagined or dreamed of so quickly in my career. I'm officially 11 days away from being 1 full year published, which is incredible. And I started my audiobook journey back earlier this year. So it's incredible. It's different. I was definitely blushing the first time I listened to it. And it's just a different way to enjoy media, whether it's ebook, paperback, hardback, or audiobook. And there's also audio dramas. There's so many different ways to bring your story to life. A lot of people really enjoy audiobooks because they can lose themselves in these voices. And some people do read-alongs where they'll read along while they're listening to the story. So it all just depends. I very much enjoyed the whole process of creating this audiobook.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now tell us a bit about your book, upcoming book, whatever you want to share about your writings.
Well, I wrote a book called Her Dark Promise. Like I said earlier, it is a dark romance. Why choose Beauty and the Beast retelling with a twist, where Belle's the Beast. Beast and Gaston are brothers who get trapped in her castle. So a lot of really crazy things happen in it. I do say there is equal plot to equal smut because it is a very spicy book. And so I definitely recommend that going into this knowing that there is spice, definitely read the trigger warning list. But that is the book that is my first published baby. I'm very proud of it. I have some more projects coming up. I actually signed with a company called I almost said my title again. A company called One More Chapter. They are part of HarperCollins. So I'm currently writing a story for them. That is really exciting. And then I'm currently working on a Pinocchio retelling. So there's just so many projects happening at this time. I'm really excited for what's to come. So just be prepared for next year. Well, I did publish one last year, nothing this year besides the audiobook. Be prepared for next year because I'm really hoping for at least 2 to 3 books.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you want to stick with just dark romance, or is it something, as growing up, first you like those fairy tales, then dark romance, and then perhaps are you also preparing for any sort of transition to other sort of writing?
I believe that I currently am enjoying retellings I guess you could say fan fiction. There are some characters where I believe that they should have ended up together and they didn't. So, for example, there's a huge Hermione community. So that's Draco Malfoy and Hermione Granger from Harry Potter. There's a lot of fan fiction about them that they wish that they would have been together. And while I don't want to recreate like Harry Potter, I would love to create a story where a female nerd or a nerd and maybe someone who is more morally gray get together, maybe a match that does, so it's just inspired by stories. I am currently going to be, not currently, I will be working on a Klaus and Caroline inspired book where it's going to be definitely kind of retelling of Vampire Diaries. And so I am enjoying like retellings. I do have a original book that I would like to also produce. So I'm talking to my editor, seeing if that could be something for next year. But right now I am trying to cement myself into people's minds. And when they think Bria Rose, I want them to think fairy tale retellings.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's so much to learn about all this from you, Bria. And I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of your potential readers would want to connect with you, learn more from you, about your book, and be your fan. What's the best way for them to do so?
Well, I always recommend people go to my website, authorbriarose.com. I definitely branded myself really well. Author Bria Rose is everything from .com at Gmail. It's my TikTok. It's my Instagram. It's pretty much almost everything. So if you want to get a hold of me, head to my website, go to TikTok. Again, Author Bria Rose.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much.